The communists took over Czechoslovakia, and my mother did survive, my father didn't survive, my sister also survived. When the communists took over Czechoslovakia, the danger was that Czechoslovakia became just like Russia, no Jewish education, no religion. So we smuggled ourselves at a level from London, with only children, with the excuse that we were all orphans. We couldn't take anything along, and my manuscript remained behind. I couldn't take anything along. However, I spoke at much greater length, and like a whole series of discussions what was going on with my experiences. Somebody of an NBC video producer, a movie producer, he comes from Johannesburg, South Africa, and he went to visit his parents. He's here on NBC, in New York, NBC, movie producer, and he took a car journey throughout the whole, from Johannesburg all to what's the end of the last city, to Cape Town by car. And his father was playing the tapes, like several tapes, 12 tapes, of my experiences. So when he heard on his journey whatever described in the tapes, he came back to New York and he calls me up. He would like to make from this a movie. I give him permission to make a movie. So I asked him, for such a movie, first of all I asked him, there are plenty of movies of the Holocaust. Why do you feel that my stories are so unique that you want to make another movie? There are plenty of movies about the Holocaust. Schindler's List, there are many, many movies. She says to me, Rabbi Mangel, your approach, your discussion is completely different than everybody else. Everybody speaks about the negative things of the Holocaust, and you speak about the positive, how God was with us, absurd. So this is something which is not discussed. We'd like to make a movie. So I tell him, but such a movie should cost you several $million, millions of dollars. Will you have the money for it? He says, Hollywood has plenty of money. That's what I have. So I give him permission. He said, yes, but editorial rights, what he should include much, because many times he put all kinds of stuff. Every journalist puts in all these ideas. I should be able to sense it, to see what he writes. So he sent me already the third draft of this movie, with my life, and he was very much, I myself should also play in this movie. But right now, he tells me, there's no problem with the money. Right now, for the last few months, he says he can't get, always ready, the manuscript is ready, the draft is ready for the movie, but right now that doesn't have the means for it. So he's waiting to be able to have the opportunity for certain Spielberg and so on, to have the money to make from this, my stories, a movie. Let's hope sometimes it will be a movie. Again. Anybody else? Yes, madam.
Can you give us some sense of the time? Was it 1939? Was it 1940?
It started, in Czechoslovakia, it started April 1944. Let me tell you, 43, and especially 44, the bulk, the majority, the 6 million Jews were killed in 1943, especially 1944. When they came to occupy our town, our city, in April 1944. And from then, when was I liberated by the Americans? In July 5, 1945. Over a year. From 1944 to 1945.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What year was that Passover that you just described?
This Passover was already 1945.
1945.
And maybe 2 months later, could have been, I said I was liberated by the Americans in July. This could have been like 2 months before that, 1945.
Where were you when you were liberated?
We were liberated in Gunskirchen. You just can't imagine. You just can't imagine what was Gunskirchen. I don't know, you just can't imagine. In the movie it will be, but you just can't imagine. We were liberated in Gunskirchen, and by this time I was just really like a vegetable. I couldn't move anymore. This friend who helped me to walk, I tell him, listen, I'm so weak, so hungry, I could hardly speak. I couldn't move anymore. Get me something to eat. He walked out like 11 o'clock. It wasn't on our barrack, only our poles, canvas, and ladies and gentlemen, it was snowing, raining. We were just on the ground, on the earth. Snowing, we were sitting in the mud. Floor snowing in the snow. You just can imagine. Let me just tell one thing about the milk. When we came into this, usually all these barracks, but it's not more barracks, there's poles and canvases, sheets of canvases over the poles. The raining, wind, snow, it just went into the. When we came with 1,200 people in this barrack. It wasn't a barrack, but in this place. And we were liberated for the last several weeks. There were no more beds. We were just sitting on the ground, on the earth, the floor, the ground. And we couldn't stretch out his legs, his hands. We were just sitting like this. If anybody had to go out to relieve himself, to crawl over our heads. That's how it was. At the time, it was 1,200 people. Last 2 weeks, just like I'm sitting down a layer on these boxes here, I was sitting on such a layer, only dead corpse of 1,200 people who remained, maybe 60, 70 people. All were dead corpse just living like this. And I was laying and leaning on them. And it would have, the war would have lasted another 2 days, 3 days, I would be also just like this. So I asked my friend, please get me something. He walked out to get, and he couldn't find anything. It was 11 o'clock, he came back at 1 o'clock. So what does he come back with? A sugar beet. You know a sugar beet? From which to make sugar, the sugar beet. So I tell him, where do you get a sugar beet here? He didn't give us anything to eat, where do you get a sugar beet? He says, around 12 o'clock I noticed the Germans take off their jacket, their uniform, and they're running, throw away their rifles, their guns, and they're running. So I realized that maybe the war came to an end, because they were running, escaping. So other people also saw it. We broke into the kitchen, only for the SS, and then he found the sugar cane, and he gave it to me, and I bit into the sweet juice. Again, was Mamish, the Jew of revival. And then he says, let's go, middle of the night. So where? He said, far. But anyways, ladies, that's how we do it. Anybody else? Yes.
What's the name of your friend that rescued you and risked his life for you? And did he survive much longer? Are you in touch with him?
Yes, we both came back. He saved my life in the camps. Afterwards, we were liberated already, for the emaciation and lack of food, a lack of water, and we ate this mud and these worms. Many people became very, very sick after the war. He got the typhus. It was really for weeks in a delirium. He didn't know what was going on. Afterwards, after the liberation, I saved his life. Without me, he would be finished. He had the typhus. I took care of him. I brought him food from the hospitals and so on and so forth. And eventually we came back. In his delirium, he says to me in Linz, now it is our transport, our train, back to Czechoslovakia, to Košice. Košice, where I come from. He says, how do you know it? He knows it. And delirium, just a fantasy, an illusion. says, where do you get from? He said, no, we have to go. And he insisted we have to go. We go to the train station in Linz. There was no trains, only cattle coaches. So we decided once we are here, we won't go back, and we entered in the cattle coaches. The manager from the station comes and sees the two children. He was 32, 23 by this time, and I was already 11. Says, where are you? Where do you want to go? She said, makes no difference. Wherever the train is going, we'll go. Makes no difference. So the manager said, we should come down. We didn't want to go down until 2-3 American soldiers came. The manager asked them, she forced us to go down. And we didn't want to go down. So the American soldier said, please come down, I'll let you go back, but I want to take pictures of you. I want to send it to New York Times, the pictures. Really skeletons. They didn't have any skin, complete skeletons. But he says, you really mean we let us back? Yes. So he took pictures of us, and we went back. And we became the city in Germany. Eventually, a few months, we came back to Czechoslovakia. But anyways, that's how, afterwards I saved his life. We both came back to Czechoslovakia. He didn't have anybody survive, not his mother, his father, his grandparents, his siblings. He didn't have anybody. My mother took care of him for a while, but he says he doesn't want that somebody should take care of him. He decided he wants to go to a kibbutz in Israel. You know the kibbutz in Israel. My mother gave him a lot of clothes, a lot of money, and he went to a kibbutz in Israel. That's how we kept on in touch, but unfortunately, he passed away. In other words, one hand washes the other hand.
What's his
In
name?
Auschwitz, in the lager, he saved my life. Afterwards, I saved his
Did you
life.
see him in Israel? Did you visit?
I beg pardon?
Did you visit him in Israel?
No, I didn't visit him. I didn't visit him because I didn't. Then I came to England. I did to England, to Canada. I didn't have any money, and my mother was in Czechoslovakia. I also didn't. So after, but we communicated. But now, unfortunately, passed away. But you see how you do a favor to somebody else after you get back. He saved my life, and I saved his life. Yes, madam.
Yeah, is it true that Mengele was actually escaped to South America and then was found many years later and actually drowned accidentally?
Yes.
So he was never actually captured?
No, no.
And so
Many
all those years he
SS,
survived
many
after.
SS escaped with the help, you wouldn't believe, the Pope. The Vatican helped many of these SS to escape to Argentina. And one of them, you know, Himmler was also caught in Argentina. Himmler. Eichmann, I'm sorry. Eichmann.
Was he a
And
famous,
he was also there, and he drowned. Yes.
yeah, was he a famous doctor, physician, experimentalist? I mean, surgeon?
Before he came to
was very
Auschwitz,
famous,
he was an experimental medical doctor, experimental. And therefore, Hitler sent him to Auschwitz, because by the time of 1942-43, Germany lost over 10 million soldiers. Hitler was afraid if the war will continue, there won't be enough young men to marry women to impregnate them in order to have children. All the young men will be killed. By 1943, over 10 million German soldiers were killed. So therefore, he instructed Mengele, make experiments upon twins, and find out the secret how a woman can have, from one conception, not one child, but 2 children, 3 children, 4 children. This was the reason of his experiments upon twins.
So was he
A
a
woman should be able,
masochist?
on the midgets was only his hobby. But the twins, he wanted how a woman becomes pregnant, should be able to conceive more than 1 child. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Mangel, and indeed, this is really a message taking darkness and converting it to light, seeing the hope and a positivity that carries the same message as Hanukkah. Thank you very much.